Hello, and today we are painting the Grinch, which I've already prepared and primed using a black Vallejo primer. And then you're going to see me now just doing a zenithal highlight using again Vallejo white primer. In this video, these are Grinch heads, yes, but they're also baubles for the Christmas tree. And I've done 3 of them, and I thought, just to kind of show off zenithals and why we do them and whatnot, I thought I would do each head zenithals, but slightly different. So one from the left, one from the right, and one from the middle. So that at the end you can see the difference. So I've used as his main middle colour, I'm going to call it, a camouflage green, and that would be his skin colour basically. So if I was before I added shadows and highlights and things, so that's his middle colour. We've only used 3 greens on the Grinch. One is going to be darker, and then a lighter green to do all the highlighting and stuff like that. This is the dark green, so this is the Luftwaffe green, if I've said that right. And I'm just going to, on quite a thin coating, do the back of his head, all the shadow areas really. So you'll see me pointing up at the model, up so it goes under his chin. It's going to hit around the underside of his mouth and his nose, his eyebrows, under his cheeks, and then I go around the back of his head because that's where the shadow and the shade is. And then you'll see me going in with the Q-tip, just tidying up any spots and splodges and stuff. So out of the airbrush, I just literally dip my brush as well, and just to colour his eyebrows the same dark green. And you'll see me do that process of colouring his eyebrows for each model, all 3 models. So I think in this clip you can see the zenithal's quite obviously in each head. So there's one at the top is the zenithals from the middle, or the centre of his face. The head on the table is angled to the right, and then the one in my hand that I'm painting is actually one on the left, and you can see the difference. It's quite obvious there. So moving on to the highest highlights, so I'm using livery or livery green, whichever way you want to say it, and I'm just catching the top of his cheeks and his top of his nose and the top of the back of his head, and then dipping in with my brush, going into the airbrush and getting the paint from there, highlighting just some of his eyebrows, the highest point of his eyebrows, the tip of his nose, that kind of thing, just to kind of add another layer. This is paint directly from the bottle. I've not thinned this at all, and I'm just picking out the fur on the back of his head, so that there's a bit of difference there rather than it just being a flat green. And then I come round and I do his cheeks, the fur on his cheeks, and highlight those. I'll go over his eyebrows and highlight some of his eyebrows, the tip of his nose again, just creating a little bit of texture, light and dark, whatever you want to call it. And then using this like this burgundy colour, I'm not thinning it. Equally, I'm not digging down the pot so it's a nice thick layer. I'm just putting a very thin layer of this maroon, crimson, I think it's called, over each eye, and this helps to create a waterline for each eyeball. In a minute I'm going to go and colour his sclera, so that's the white of your eye. I'm not going to use white. I never use white on the white of your eye. With him I've used yellow green, and I used, here I am showing yellow green, and it's just a little drop in I think it was bone white I've used it in. I didn't want to do, I wanted white, so it was like a pure colour almost. But yeah, it's a very pale yellow that I've done. And then I did his iris, so that's the colour of your eye. I did that in the yellow green, and then you'll see me now just putting the black pupil into his into each eye, and he's looking off to the side, a bit shifty looking there. So it's making sure that both eyes are kind of heading in the same direction. So it's just getting the angle right, really. And then moving on to his mouth, so I've used tanned flesh, so you'll see it in my little silver dish there. Just added airbrush thinner or brush thinner, and then just give it a mix up so it's thinned, and then working from the middle out to the edges, just a very thin coat, and then it's by eye, it's building on each layer, and as you get to the outer corners, the paint's thinning, which is what you want really. You want the colour more in the middle, so it's quite subtle, this really. So using Scarlet Blood, we are painting his little Santa hat, just an even colour all over. And you'll see that I'm putting down the red, and it's really looks solid on the white paint that is going on top of. But on the black, or the darker side I should say, it's like the paint's not taking to the model. But this is just the black that's showing through. And then we're going to reverse that. So on the black, we're going to put gory red, and then we're going to just paint over and blend it in then into the Scarlet Blood red, if that makes sense. It'll give light and dark for the hat. So using the deck tan, we've squirted some into a little silver dish there, and then we're going to put some flow improver in there. And there's nothing fancy about this really. It's giving it a little mix and brushing it on. It's just a flat deck tan colour all over his little pom-pom at the end of his hat and his fur trim. So it's just laying down that colour. And here you can see I'm just going in with the deck tan, just touching up areas that I've missed, or if I've gone over with the deck tan onto the red or the green, just touching up those areas just to tidy it up and make sure that all the paint is where it should be. Here I'm actually doing a quick dry brush over the trim and the pom-pom with a bone white. And it's really unusual to use a white. I don't use a white generally on any models, but here I'm just using it just to give those areas a bit of a pop and give them a new dimension. It just adds something else to the model, and it doesn't look like it's doing very much, but it does add a difference. So looking to finish the model now, and I'm going to just seal it all with an ultra matte finish varnish, and this takes the shine off everything, including his eyes. So I decided to do something a bit different this time, and I thought I'd UV resin. I could have just varnish glossed his eyes, really made it easy for myself, but instead I used UV resin. So I'm just coating the eyes, the parts I should say that I want glossy. And what you don't see me do is put them under a UV light to harden the resin or set the resin. And here's the end product. This is it finished. I think you can really see the difference in the highlight, the dark and the light sides of the faces, which I think is pretty cool. So the same but very different.